Are you missing a crucial step in your RAW editing workflow? There's a good chance you are. In this video, I'll show you the one key step to take before touching a single slider. Your RAW file isn't perfect straight out of the camera. It's often noisy, lacks detail, and fixing that first is essential. I pre-process every RAW file I work on, especially those shot at high ISO values. Pre-processing involves key steps like denoising and demosaicing the raw sensor data. This creates a cleaner, higher quality file and gives you a stronger foundation for editing. Sure, you can edit directly from the original RAW file, but pre-processing consistently delivers better results in terms of detail, clarity, and overall image quality. I use DxO PureRAW to handle that step. Version 5 has just been released, and in this video, I'll show you exactly why it's my go-to tool. I'll compare it with version 4, break down what's new, and let you know if the upgrade is worth it. Now, a quick disclaimer, this video is not sponsored by DxO. They have no input on this content, and all opinions are 100% my own. I genuinely believe in the software as the results speak for themselves. If you'd like to support the channel, however, I've included affiliate links below along with a free trial if you want to try it out for yourself. DxO PureRAW is a standalone application, or it can be installed as a Lightroom plugin, and that's how I like to use it. Before I do any editing to this image, you can see it's very noisy, shot at ISO 25600. I'm going to run this through DxO PureRAW 5, and to do that as a plugin, I go to File, Plugin Extras, and then Preview and Process with DxO PureRAW 5. And what that's going to allow me to do then is put that raw file into DxO PureRAW and allow me to fine-tune the details on that image. And then after processing that in PureRAW, it's going to give me a DNG file to work on from there. So this is the new interface in PureRAW 5. We have a much simpler interface to use, which in my opinion is a lot better. There's also an inclusion of DeepPRIME 3. That is a new denoising and demosaicing algorithm, which gives much better results in my opinion compared to the DeepPRIME XD2S/XD, which was part of previous generations of PureRAW. Now, there are a few other changes which I will go through in terms of the user interface and features in version 5, but let's start by processing this image. I'm going to zoom into 100% to see exactly at the pixel level what PureRAW is actually doing to this file. So on the left-hand side here, you've got the original RAW file information, and on the right-hand side, you've got the processed information that has gone through DxO PureRAW 5. So you can see the file is a lot cleaner. So to start out with, on the right-hand side here, you've got different algorithms to choose from. I'm going to choose DeepPRIME 3. DeepPRIME XD2S is an older generation, and DeepPRIME XD3 here is actually for X-trans sensors. So if you are shooting with a Fuji camera, you're able to now use PureRAW on those files. It's limited to 4th generation and below. It's not available for 5th generation X-trans sensors yet. So I'm going to use DeepPRIME 3. And then underneath here, we've got a luminance slider and force details. Now, the luminance slider is the denoising slider. So if I take it back all the way to 0, you can see the noise is still present in the image. Now, DxO is eliminating the color noise, even with this luminance at 0. You can see on the left, this before has a lot of color noise. And on the right-hand side, we've just been left with that luminance noise. So increasing the luminance slider will start getting rid of that noise very, very well. So the higher you go, the more noise gets taken away from the image. This was quite a high ISO, and it needs quite a high value here. So a luminance value of about 75 seems to be giving me the results that I want. Now, force details is almost like a sharpening algorithm. It works a little bit differently to the conventional sharpening, but what this force details does, it tries to add back clarity and textures to the image that was perhaps lost during the denoise process. I don't find this to work very well. You can see, especially on the whisker pattern here, it's brought back quite a bit of detail there, but it's not great in my opinion. And I generally just leave this force details at 0. Further on in the user interface here, we've got lens sharpness optimization. So that is essentially now going to sharpen the image. Previously, you had 4 settings to choose from: soft, standard, strong, and hard. But now we also have a custom setting, so you can actually increase the intensity using just the slider here. So I generally use a soft amount. I don't want to over sharpen the file because I like to do that later during the editing process. You can remove the vignetting, chromatic aberration, and lens distortion from the image. I like to remove chromatic aberration, and lens distortion, I don't generally remove that from wildlife photographs. I don't find the lens distortion to be causing any issues in the images that I shoot, so I don't turn that on at all. Now, once you are happy with your settings here, you can click Process Now, but I just want to show you a couple of further updates to PureRAW 5. You actually have the ability to use masks now. Now, for me, I don't use this feature at all. I like to denoise the entire file, and if I want to add further isolated effects later on, I do that through Lightroom. I don't want to denoise specific areas separately. I perhaps will sharpen different areas separately, but sharpening happens further down the line, not at this pre-process stage. But if you did want to, it works in a similar way to a Lightroom mask. You can just paint on the area where you want the effect to be applied. So say we want it to be applied here, for example, paint that in. I'm just going to click this show mask off so I can see the image. And then through these selections here, you can add in sharpness, you can add in some more luminance, noise reduction, force details, and that sort of thing. So wherever we've painted, that's where that effect is being applied. But again, I don't use this. Perhaps if DxO in the future brought out some AI masks that will help you select the subject a bit better, perhaps then I would use it to selectively sharpen the subject. But at the stage now of this version, it's a manual brush and there's no way to fine-tune those masks using those AI selections and that sort of thing. So it's a very limited feature at this stage. Then going further down on the menu here, you've got the output settings, and this is where you select the output settings that you want to use. I'm going to always use a DNG file. That's going to keep the original raw information and input that into that new DNG file. That's going to give me the biggest latitude possible for when I edit the file later on in Lightroom. I don't save it as a TIFF or a JPEG. Destination, I leave this as the original destination. File renaming, I generally don't like to rename my files because it adds a whole bunch of different characters to the file name, and I prefer to keep it simple. And this is one of my gripes with DxO PureRAW 5. It wants to always output the file to a collection in Lightroom, and I don't find that necessary. I wish you could turn this feature off. So this is one thing I'd like to see DxO perhaps implement and allow us to not have to put that new DNG file into a collection. But at the moment, I have to choose a collection, so I just put it as the default for now. Now, one thing I will say with version 5, I find the preview window loads a lot quicker than in version 4. And also when I'm processing a file back into Lightroom, it renders that new DNG file a lot quicker than PureRAW 4 did. And I find, for me, that is perhaps definitely worth upgrading for. When I'm editing a lot of files, that speed that you can actually preview the file and render that file definitely does make a big difference. Now, one thing I would like to see in the future is if you look at this original RAW file, it's quite dark. So trying to preview the noise reduction in some areas, it might seem a little bit difficult because it's a bit dark. I would like to see perhaps a feature that would allow DxO just to bump up the exposure preview a little bit, just so I could see that noise a little bit better there. And one thing I really do like, once you have zoomed in, you have this navigation window on the top left, and you can just move that around. It just helps you preview that file a lot easier and a lot quicker. So I really like that. So let's process this file so I can send that new DNG file back into Lightroom. So now we are back in Lightroom, and you can see it's now put this image into a collection. You can see I've been working on a few files and it's made all of these separate collections, and I don't really like that. So I prefer to not see these collections made. I would prefer to just go back to the original folder. And in this case, it was the quick collection to see that file. So there's the new DNG file there. There's my original RAW file. So let's have a look at the comparison between the two. So you can see initially I'd raised the exposure up here by 0.85. And now because DxO looks at the original RAW file and not anything Lightroom has done, it's now darker there. So let's just raise this up to 0.85. Just help me preview a side-by-side comparison of the original RAW and the DNG file. So that's what we have now. The original RAW file is on the left, and the DxO PureRAW 5 rendered file is on the right-hand side. So you can see it's a lot cleaner. And this image shot at ISO 25600 is extremely usable. Now, one thing to consider when you are bringing a denoised file back into Lightroom, just make sure your detail and the color noise is down to 0. Because if you leave this as the default of 25, you can see the file now has a lot of color that has been taken away from this raw file. And Lightroom does that to remove color noise. But because we don't have any color noise, I always take this back to 0 just to bring back all the color in the image, which makes quite a big difference. I've got another image here that I've rendered in Lightroom AI Denoise, in PureRAW 4, and in PureRAW 5. So I want to just run through a comparison just to show you the differences between them all. So here is my original RAW file. You can see this was quite noisy, shot at ISO 20,000. I'm zoomed into 100% so you can see the detail at pixel level. Here is the next one. This is Lightroom's AI Denoise. It's done a very nice job at removing the noise, but I find Lightroom AI Denoise almost makes the image and the details a little bit soft, almost like they have a little bit of negative clarity, especially here on the wood. Although the noise is gone, the details just seem to be lacking a little bit in my opinion. Here's DxO PureRAW 4. Again, the noise here has also been eliminated very well, and DxO PureRAW 4, in my opinion, was better than Lightroom's AI Denoise, but you can see some of the details almost look artificial. It almost looks like it's AI-generated detail, and to me, it just doesn't look truly natural. And when I compare it to version 5 of DxO PureRAW, the image looks a lot more natural. The details look natural, noise has been reduced very well, and I just prefer the overall output of version 5. Let's compare it to Lightroom. Here is a side-by-side comparison. We've got Lightroom on the right-hand side. We've got DxO PureRAW 5 on the left-hand side. So you can see there's just a lot more detail in that DxO file and a lot more clarity, especially here on the wood. On the right-hand side in Lightroom, it just looks a little bit softer. Let's compare version 5 to version 4. We've got version 4 on the right-hand side, version 5 on the left-hand side. And this is where you can see what I was talking about. If you look at the front of the leopard's face here, the detail on the right-hand side version 4 image, those details there just look a little bit too strange for my liking. On the left-hand side, it's perhaps slightly less sharp, but it looks a lot more natural in my opinion. So the question is version 5 worth upgrading from version 4? And is DxO PureRAW better than using Lightroom's AI Denoise? I think for me, DxO PureRAW is far superior to the Lightroom AI Denoise we currently have. Perhaps Lightroom will improve their algorithms to give us a superior result. But at the moment, PureRAW 4 or PureRAW 5 are better than Lightroom's AI Denoise. And for me, I would definitely consider investing the money into one of those versions. Now, version 4 is not available anymore. And if you're new to the DxO platform, purchasing version 5 would definitely give you better results than Lightroom's AI Denoise. But if you're coming from version 4 to version 5, I don't know if the upgrade is worth it or not. I guess if you want faster rendering times, faster preview times, and that small bump in image quality, I guess then you could have an argument to say, yes, go for version 5. But if you are happy with version 4, by all means, stick with version 4, perhaps download a trial and try it out for yourself and compare those results from version 4 to version 5. DxO PureRAW is a key part of my editing workflow, and in this video, you'll see exactly how I use it on a full edit on this bird photograph captured at ISO 12,800.